lost voice, so I apologize beforehand for how I sound. We often think of recovery as something physical, whether it be rebuilding cities after war, reopening schools after pandemic, or recovering from a lost voice like me. But what about recovering trust? Recovering empathy, recovering leadership, recovering the very pillars on which lasting peace and progress depend. Recovery in this sense isn't about bricks or budgets, but it's about how we rebuild the invisible foundations of functioning society through trust, cooperation, and shared responsibility. You know what's astonishing is that I've seen these foundations being quietly rebuilt by people who aren't even old enough to vote. Let me take you into a room full of Gen Z teenagers, not mindlessly scrolling on TikTok as you'd expect, but instead debating nuclear disarmament, international refugee policies, and women's rights. If I were to stop any person today and ask them, who do you think shapes the policies and drives the change that we see in our world today, I bet you $5 and some change that they'd say, oh, it's politicians that work in the government, or oh, it's diplomats that work in the United Nations. See, I wouldn't tell them that they're wrong, because they're not wrong, they're right. These people and these institutions are the face of the change. But this change is born in classrooms. It's cultivated in student-led summits, and it's nurtured in circles of young people committed to diplomacy. And I'm beyond proud to say that I witnessed this firsthand. My journey started in 6th grade when I joined the online Zoom Model United Nations meetings as soon as the pandemic hit. For me, at the time, it was just another Zoom meeting I had to join during a time of chaos. But over time, it became my unique form of recovery. Discussing the quality of education in developing countries and global security in my free time became a way for me to connect to the outside world during that time of isolation, and also a way for me to rebuild trust, empathy, and leadership as a student just finding a voice in the world of diplomacy. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what Model UN is, it's an educational simulation of the United Nations that allows students to engage in diplomacy and international relations by representing different countries and debating both ongoing and historical international crises. Over the years, my passion for politics, international relations, and diplomacy grew. And with it, so did my understanding of how important youth leadership is in driving diverse recoveries worldwide as well. From being the only freshman on the high school admin team to last year, when I was elected Secretary General of our school's Model UN program, I have led and worked with over 200 students as we've debated in conferences all over the world. Honestly, in your heads right now, think about any global issue, and we've just about completed it. Even last year, at the 5th annual Model UN conference that we hosted at our school, which is one of the largest bilingual conferences for both middle school and high school students in the region, delegates debated a Chernobyl crisis committee in English and discussed the recruitment of child soldiers in conflict zones in Spanish. They created resolution papers for each of the 11 different committees with 11 different topics. Every single resolution paper was unique. I mean, this is middle schoolers and high schoolers. And their solutions were just, oh, we'll bring peace or we'll negotiate with countries. But they came up with distinct, diverse, and unique solutions like developing an international nuclear rapid response team and traveling classrooms offering therapy, job training, and education. Through this extracurricular, I've also had the opportunity to debate in conferences all over the world, from New York and Chicago to Panama and The Hague. I've worked with these students as we debated in these conferences, and the thing that changed my perspective and made me open my eyes was seeing students reimagine the future. I often ask myself, what makes our generation different from the generations that came before us? There are always generalizations made about different age groups and generations. For example, baby boomers always start their sentences with, back in my day. Or Gen X, they have to memorize all of their phone numbers to be able to call anyone. And millennials, they probably remember their lives before the internet, and they probably taught their parents how to use it. With time and thought, I've realized that what sets us, Gen Z, apart isn't our access to technology and information, but it's our ability and our mindset to use the tools granted to us to initiate diverse recoveries. Currently, we live in a world that's more interconnected than ever, and we see young people becoming some of the most powerful drivers of change. From one side of the world, we see Greta Thunberg leading climate strikes with millions worldwide with nothing but a sign and a voice. To another part of the world, where we see Malala Yousafzai turning the personal tragedy of an assassination attempt into a worldwide fight for girls' education. In the space in between, we see X Gonzalez becoming a leading voice for gun reform in the U.S. after surviving the Stoneman Douglas high school shooting, the most deadly high school shooting in all of history. And of course, Ketanji Brown, using science and technology to bring awareness to global issues ranging from the clean water crisis to cyberbullying. We see that this generation, my generation, our generation, isn't waiting to take its turn, but we're taking action now. Now, all of these youth leaders that I mentioned, they're known for their courageous acts of advocacy and activism. But even taking small steps, such as joining your school's high school and or middle school, can be a training ground for you to bring change, because you never know. All it takes is one committee, one debate, one speech, where your voice may shake a little but still gets heard. And suddenly, like this, you're not just learning about the world, but you're helping shape it. So many of the international issues today that we face, they require the key pillars of trust, empathy, and leadership to be restored before anything else. And that's what we realized as a cohort. The young leaders I mentioned, they represent different paths, and everybody in this room does as well. Because some people are stimulating change through education and innovation, while others are doing it through technology and information. They all have their own different paths, and that's what makes youth leadership so powerful. There are millions of youth leaders in our world today, but none of their forms of activism look the same. What's powerful is that they don't look the same. They're diverse. When thinking about diversity, you may think of it in terms of background or heritage, but that's not all it is. The diversity of approaches is what our world needs and what we're trying to give it. Diverse recoveries, led by diverse voices, our voices, walking towards a more just and inclusive future. So, whether you're sitting or standing in the UN with a real placard, you're holding one at your local high school paper one, I want you all to remember that recovery has already been happening, and it's being led by us. And I want to leave you with something that I've lived with my entire life. And that's to never feel like your age limits your impact. Because the truth is that change doesn't ask how old you are. It just asks if you're ready. Thank you.